My wife said she was visiting her mother, but her mother called me asking where she was. On Sunday night, we did our usual calendar talk over pasta and a drowned-out TV rerun. She sat cross-legged on the sofa, laptop balanced on her thighs, and said she was going to her mother's on Tuesday. It was tossed into the air like a coin. Casual, shining, already spent. I nodded and added it to the notes app I keep for the week so I don't forget to pick up the dry cleaning or call the bank. She kissed the top of my head when she passed, left a ghost of perfume behind, and asked if I could feed her mother's cat if she stayed late. I said sure, little logistics are the scaffolding of a marriage. You climb them without looking down. Tuesday, 6:40 p.m. My phone lit up with Irina. I put it on speaker while I stirred a pan of onions. Marek, do you know where Alina is? She always called me that, softer than everyone else. I said she was on her way to her place, and Irina exhaled into the line like she was blowing a leaf that wouldn't move. She said that, but she isn't here. The onions hissed. I checked the time again. Traffic, I said. Battery's dying, I said. She clicked her tongue, not unkindly. Okay, I'll call later. When the call ended, the kitchen sounded louder. I stared at the stove until the onions went from translucent to embarrassed brown. I texted Alina, need anything from your mom's? I can swing by later. 3 pulsing dots, then, all good. Kiss to you. I stared at the single period she didn't add. She always adds a period. It's funny what you suddenly remember when something goes off by half a degree. I don't like the feeling of snooping. My job is numbers and roots. I prefer systems that tell you what's coming. But curiosity, when it's bent by love and fear, doesn't feel like curiosity. It feels like survival. I opened her Instagram. Nothing new. No story. No dinner plate with a caption about mama's soup. WhatsApp status. Last seen an hour ago. The shared location we'd used when she had a flat tire last winter was grayed out. We don't keep it on all the time, but toggling it back on takes seconds. I typed, "You okay? Traffic?" and deleted it. I typed, "Say hi to Irina from me," and deleted that too. At 7:18 p.m., Irina called back. Her voice was careful, the way you hold a glass that might chip. Still no Alina. I felt my own voice go performatively calm, like it was pretending to have a job interview. I'm sure she's just... Maybe she stopped at the pharmacy? I'll check in. After we hung up, I opened my bank app to pay a bill and saw a pending charge on the joint card. Sparrow Rentals. $50 hold. The name looked like an error message from a travel website. We don't rent cars. We use hers or mine. I clicked through, drilled down to merchant details. Sparrow Rentals, hospitality, subcategory, lodging. I told myself that could mean anything. Co-working desk, event space. I looked it up. A recorded voice chirped that Sparrow managed short-term cabins near Lake Raven and other picturesque escapes. Picturesque, a word that tries too hard. I walked to the hallway where we keep the shoe rack, the umbrella stand, the basket for things that want to go out and never do. Her weekend bag wasn't there. Neither were her hiking boots. There was a folded note from the pharmacy tucked inside the basket. The kind where they staple a receipt to information about an over-the-counter cold remedy. The date was last week. I stacked it under an old electricity bill and told myself I was rearranging, not searching. Irina arrived around 8 because she couldn't sit still. She came straight from the bus stop with her hair frizzed by drizzle and hugged me in a way that made me want to wipe my eyes like a kid. We made tea. She perched on the edge of our chair with her bag still on her shoulder, as if she might have to leave mid-sentence. She called me at 4, Irina said, twisting the ring on her finger, and said, "If Mark asks, I'm with you all evening, okay?" She laughed, like a joke. She looked up at me sharply. I told her no. I told her not to do that to you. And then I called you. Something in my chest knocked once, like a cupboard shutting itself. I wanted to be generous. I tried to fit benign scenarios around the shape of that sentence, like sweater sleeves. Surprise party. Errand for her mom she didn't want me to worry about. A friend in trouble. I poured tea and set out the jar of honey Alina's coworker gave us. We chewed dry cookies and pretended to eat. At 8:31 p.m., I typed a new message. "All good with your mom?" I let it sit unsent, watching the little blue cursor blink like a heartbeat monitor. I didn't send it. I hated the idea that my concern might be archived somewhere as evidence I didn't trust her. The habit of documentation sneaks up on you. I opened my voice recorder and spoke so quietly I could hear the soft click of my tongue. "Tuesday," Irina called. Alina nodded her mother's. "Pending charge, Sparrow Rentals." I hit stop and felt silly. Then grateful to the version of me 5 hours from now, who might want a clean line to follow back. Irina was watching me. "You're being very calm," she said. I wanted to tell her calm is what happens when the fear is too big to pick up. At 9:07 p.m., Alina sent a photo. A takeout coffee cup held in her hand in a kitchen that could be her mother's at a glance. White tile, wooden trim. But the sink in the background was stainless steel, not ceramic. And Irina's calendar of saints wasn't on the wall. There was a strip of under-cabinet light we don't know. The caption was, She says hi. The under-cabinet light nagged at me in the way a word sits on your tongue and refuses to become itself. I saved the image and, without thinking, opened the photo info. No location data. That, too, means something. Irina looked at the picture and said, in that same careful way, "That's not here." She took out her phone to call again. It rang until it didn't. She lowered the phone and set it face down on the table, as if we were in a meeting where phones are rude. I went back to Sparrow Rentals. A cheerful website showed cabins with names like Wren, Heron, Robin, Lake Raven Cabin Rentals, 2 hours west. A red block on the map said Mariners, next to the lake. A restaurant with a pierside deck. My cursor hovered over a cluster of gray roads. I searched my email. Nothing. I searched the shared calendar. Nothing. Finally, because my hands were shaking in that useless, tiny way, I phoned the automated number again and navigated the menu until a bot confirmed a reservation for Wednesday through Thursday in the name A. Danilenko. It didn't say Alina. It didn't need to. The bot offered to text confirmation details. I hung up, like opening a window and then deciding not to breathe. There are moments in a house when even the refrigerator hum sounds like a question. Irina said she should go. I walked her down and waited until the elevator doors closed. I watched myself in the warped reflection and didn't recognize my posture. Back inside, the apartment felt overlit. Every lamp aglare. I opened the drawer where we keep the car keys and picked up mine. I put them down. I picked them up again. I thought of the dozens of times I've told friends that adults talk, that the worst thing is to catch someone like a thief. I thought of the soft, imprecise word, mistake, and how it sits next to harder words and asks them to make room. At 9:43 p.m., I sent one message. Call me when you can. I set the phone face down and waited for it to buzz. Waited for the sound that would turn my worry into an anecdote. Nothing came. I opened Maps and typed Lake Raven. The blue line slithered across the screen. 1 hour, 56 minutes. Toll road. I added a stop. Mariners. As if menus could be motives. My finger hovered over the start button. If I went and saw nothing, if I went and saw everything, what then? My voice recorder waited like a small animal. I pressed it again. If I leave now, I can be there by midnight. I will knock on a door if I have to. I will not knock on a door if I don't have to. I will take pictures of nothing. I turned off the lamp by the couch and darkness pressed against the window like a palm. I grabbed a charger, a thermos, my jacket. The floor creaked in the hallway and I realized I was walking as if the apartment had a sleeping child. At the door I paused, thinking of the cat I was supposed to feed, of the ordinary favor that suddenly sounded like a code phrase. I locked up, went down the stairs because the elevator was too slow for my heart, stepped into the dim parking lot, and the car answered the fob with 2 small blinks. The engine turned over. The dashboard washed everything in soft blue. I put the maps pin on the cabin cluster and watched the route draw itself like a harmless plan. Like a line that wasn't about to cross anything at all. The road stretched out like a ribbon with no edges. I had the map in the cup holder, its voice muted, just a line of blue cutting through black countryside. The thermos hissed when I unscrewed it, and the coffee was already sour from being trapped too long, but it kept my hands busy. The highway emptied as I left the city glow behind. The exits grew rarer, the lights farther apart. 2 hours. I kept saying that to myself. 2 hours is not the end of the world. 2 hours can still be explained. At the last turn, the GPS glitched and spun, but then a wooden sign emerged from the trees. Lake Raven Cabins. My headlights painted the carved letters pale. The gravel road snapped under my tires. Each turn revealed a scatter of cabins, some with lights glowing, some dead dark. When I reached the one marked 14, the parking spot was already taken. A silver sedan I didn't recognize. Her car wasn't there. My heart raced in confusion until I saw it, tucked a little farther back among the trees, like a guest trying not to take up space. My hands gripped the wheel so hard the leather creaked. I turned off my lights, coasted another 100 feet down, and pulled to the side. The cabin had its porch light on, its windows glowing faint yellow. I killed the engine and sat in the dark. It was impossible not to look. The curtains inside swayed slightly, enough to show silhouettes moving. One leaned back, broad shoulders. The other stepped forward, slim, hair tied up. I knew the tilt of that head. My throat locked. I lifted my phone without thinking, zoomed, snapped photos. They were grainy, indecisive pictures, but they existed. The timestamp glared in the corner. At 11:23, the door opened. A man stepped out, laughing at something said behind him. He had a cigarette between his fingers, the ember glowing orange. He stood under the porch light, phone pressed to his ear. A moment later, the door opened again, and Alina stepped out in her cardigan. She brushed hair from her face and handed him a lighter. They spoke, too softly to hear, and then she leaned against the doorframe like she'd done that hundreds of times before. When he flicked the cigarette into the gravel, she touched his wrist as he passed. It wasn't dramatic. It was casual. Unthinking, and that casualness was the knife. I didn't move. I wanted to storm out, shout her name, drag the truth into the air, but some cold part of me whispered, proof. If you want to survive this, you need proof, not a scene. I raised my phone again. He got into the sedan, and they drove away together. I waited a full minute before I followed, headlights off until I reached the road. They drove to the lakefront. Mariner's restaurant glowed with fairy lights strung along a deck, their car parked close to the entrance. From the opposite lot, I watched them walk in, his hand pressed low against her back. I waited, my jaw locked so tight it felt like stone. When they came out an hour later, laughing under the awning, I slid lower in my seat. I saw him hold the door, saw her brush rain off her shoulder. They kissed, brief but certain. My stomach turned hot and hollow at once. I snapped another photo, hand shaking, and hated myself for needing it. They drove back toward the cabins. I followed at a distance, headlights hidden behind trucks when I could. They turned in, parked, disappeared inside. Light filled the windows, then shifted, then went out. Darkness swallowed the cabin whole. I stayed in my car, engine off, listening to rain tap the windshield. Every nerve in me screamed, but I stayed. Around 4 a.m., I stirred awake from a half-sleep. The cabin was still dark, but voices carried in the silence. The walls weren't thick. The night air let things travel. It was muffled, but I caught enough. Her voice sharp, his voice rising in defense. Then a name. Katya. Then her voice again. Lower, urgent. You promised to leave her. My breath froze. I wrote it down immediately in my notes, the words blunt in digital ink. I didn't trust my memory. I needed timestamps more than I needed oxygen. The sun pushed a gray line into the sky. Birds started. My back hurt from the car seat, but I didn't move. The cabin remained still, but the argument echoed in my ears long after it was over. My phone screen lit with the time, 6:11 a.m. I recorded into my voice app. Silhouettes, cabin 14. Man with her. Restaurant Mariners. Argument with the word Katya. Promise to leave her. My own whisper sounded like someone else's testimony. I sat there and realized this wasn't about guessing anymore. This wasn't about suspicion or paranoia or wrong timing. This was happening. Alive. With receipts and echoes and photographs. And for the first time since Irina called, I felt the floor shift into something solid. Not safe, not painless, but real. I gripped the steering wheel as if it might steady me. The truth is heavier than any lie, and I was just beginning to lift it. When daylight finally forced its way through the trees, I drove back toward the city in a haze. The steering wheel felt slippery, my palms damp no matter how many times I wiped them against my jeans. The argument I'd overheard kept replaying. Her voice saying, Katya, like it was a threat. His voice promising something he couldn't possibly deliver. I thought of the man's car, the cigarettes, the way she touched his wrist. I thought of how easily it had all been happening while I was making lists, doing groceries, believing her stories. I wasn't ready to crash into a confrontation yet, but I needed to know who he was. Katya was the first thread I had. Back at my desk later that day, coffee trembling in my hand, I opened her company's website. Staff page, marketing team photo. There he was. Tall, the same shoulders, grin tilted in that easy way. Name, Denis Shapoval. LinkedIn. Married, kids not mentioned. I searched further. His wife's profile came up under his connections. Katya. The same name from the fight. I clicked through her photos. She looked like someone who'd learned to smile politely even when she was tired. My stomach flipped with guilt before I even sent the message. I typed slow, careful, deleting every accusatory word. Finally, I wrote, Hello, Katya. I know this is strange. My name is Mark. My wife Alina works with your husband Denis. I need to ask something difficult. Could we talk privately? I stared at it for a full minute before pressing send. I half expected silence forever. I half hoped for it. An hour passed. Then the typing dots appeared. Her answer was short. What do you think you know? I read it 10 times before writing back. I was at Lake Raven Cabins last night. I saw them together. I have photos. My heart pounded so hard I felt it in my ears. Minutes later, her reply arrived. Wait, and then silence again. When her next message came, it was like floodgates opening. Screenshots of her husband's chats with Alina, flirtatious lines about late nights at work, next trip can't come soon enough. Emojis that made me sick to look at. There were pictures too. Blurry selfies from office parties, his hand on her waist, her face angled toward him. Dates and times lined up with nights she'd told me she was staying late or visiting her mom. Every image stabbed twice. Once for what I saw, once for how blind I'd been. I didn't reply right away. I just scrolled through the screenshots with the detached calm of someone studying case evidence. The timestamps matched my own photos, my bank receipts, the rental hold. It wasn't paranoia anymore. It was a ledger, balanced in black ink. Katya finally wrote again. I didn't know it was this bad. He told me she was just a distraction. I should have trusted my gut. I sent her a picture I'd taken the night before. Alina and Denis on the restaurant deck. Close enough their shoulders touched. Katya sent back only 3 words. That's my husband. That evening, Irina came by again. She was too restless to sit home. I told her more this time, though not everything. I showed her the Sparrow rentals charge, the photo of the coffee cup in the wrong kitchen, the screenshots Katya had given me. Irina pressed her palm to her forehead and whispered. She called me at 4 and begged me to cover for her. She even laughed about it. I told her no. I thought maybe she would get scared and stop. She looked up, eyes sharp with shame. I should have warned you earlier. I shook my head. You already did, and I meant it. If she hadn't called Tuesday, I'd still be ignorant, still living in the warm lie. That night, I started building a timeline. Transaction logs, photos, chats from Katya, my own audio notes. I lined them up hour by hour. February, March, April. The pattern was unmistakable. Trips that matched, excuses that rhymed. A marriage that was happening in 2 houses at once. I copied it into a private folder, backed it up. I didn't trust myself not to break down and erase it all in a wave of denial. Documentation kept me upright. It was the only thing more solid than the lies. I wanted to explode, to send her every file at once and watch her squirm under the weight of it. But the lawyer I'd reached out to, an old contact of my cousin, told me calmly over the phone, patience is your shield. Document first, act later. The moment you confront, she controls the narrative. Don't hand her the steering wheel. His voice was so even I almost hated him, but he was right. My rage would make me sloppy. Proof would make me safe. Katya wrote again late that night. What are you going to do? I stared at her message for a long time. The truth was I didn't know. Part of me wanted to blow up both marriages with one group text. Another part wanted to vanish quietly, pack a bag, let her drown in her own stories. Instead, I answered honestly, I'm not sure, but I won't let her lie to me again. She sent back a single message that cut through everything. When you decide, I'll help. He deserves it too. The screen glowed in the dark bedroom while the other side of the bed stayed empty. She was still at her mother's. I almost laughed at the absurdity. I turned my phone face down and whispered into the recorder. Day 3. Her alibi collapses. Katya confirms. Screenshots match my timeline. This is real. My own voice trembled, but the record didn't care. Proof doesn't care how broken you sound. It just waits to be played again. By Thursday, I stopped pretending that work could distract me. Numbers blurred, emails went unanswered, and every time my phone buzzed, I half expected her to confess, to admit, to lie with a new kind of polish. Instead, she sent a selfie from what she claimed was her mother's kitchen again. This time a cappuccino, her hair down, smile too bright for a gray morning. The cabinet behind her was the wrong shade, a detail she'd never notice. I saved the picture, pulled up the file info, and saw it again. No location data, but the EXIF timestamp put her across town. During the exact hour, Katya forwarded me a fresh screenshot of Dennis messaging. Lunch break? Just us. The captions and the coordinates didn't match. Lies rarely do when you look at them close. I started planning. Quietly, methodically, like a man packing for a trip he doesn't want to take. My cousin's lawyer called back and told me the same thing in a tone that felt like a lifeline. Stay calm. Gather everything. Secure finances. I moved our shared savings into a frozen sub-account only I could access, changed passwords, and started saving backups of every file. Proof is fragile if you leave it in one place. Irina visited again, bringing soup in a plastic container. She hovered, restless, eyes scanning the apartment like she could see the ghosts. She used to tell me everything, she said softly. But lately she talks too fast, like she's running away mid-sentence. I didn't tell her the half of it, but I let her know she wasn't wrong. She squeezed my hand across the table and whispered, "You don't have to carry this alone." For the first time, I believed her. Katya and I kept exchanging messages. She sent a photo of Dennis from a corporate retreat, his arms slung around Alina, their faces close, background blurred with fairy lights. The date stamp aligned perfectly with a late client dinner I'd eaten reheated leftovers through. Katya wrote, "He swore he'd end it after the quarter closes." Lies, obviously. I stared at the photo until my chest burned. The audacity of how easy it had been for them. How visible, how practiced. I drafted a plan. A dinner with Alina, me, and both our mothers. Frame it as a discussion about refinancing the apartment. She'd show up because she liked being the center of adult decisions. Irina already knew. My mother, cautious and skeptical, agreed to come when I hinted I needed her as a witness more than as family. My idea wasn't a confrontation of screaming. It was a table set with the truth, and chairs that wouldn't let her run. To prepare, I printed copies of the timeline I'd built. Bank transactions, Sparrow rentals charge, photos of her car at the cabin, screenshots from Katya, the selfie with the wrong cabinet. Each page had dates, times, context. I slid them into a folder like they were meeting notes. I wasn't looking for theater. I was looking for weight, the kind that can't be denied. I also wrote HR at her company. Not accusations, just a polite inquiry. What is your policy regarding relationships between employees? The answer came a day later. Boilerplate but clear. Romantic relationships between employees must be disclosed to HR. Failure to do so may result in disciplinary action. I didn't reply. I just added the email to the folder. All the while, Alina leaned harder into her act. She called one evening with laughter in her voice, said her mother had made her favorite stew, asked if I'd eaten. I answered gently, neutrally, my pen jotting down the time. When she asked why I was so quiet, I told her I was tired. She said she missed me. I held the phone away from my ear and whispered into the recorder. She says she misses me while Katya's screenshots show otherwise. My own voice sounded brittle but steady. Katya pushed again one night. We could expose them together. Group dinner. All four of us. It would be poetic. I thought about it but shook my head even as I typed, no, I need to do this on my terms. For me, she sent back, then do it. Don't let her flip this on you. She was right. Alina's patterns were already clear. Deny, attack, claim to be the victim. DARVO in every syllable. I had to set the board so she couldn't flip it. The night before the dinner, I placed the folder on the desk and sat staring at it. I thought of every little thing I'd ignored. The late nights explained with too much detail, the perfume I didn't recognize, the sudden silences when I entered a room. They'd been puzzle pieces spilled on the floor, and I'd been too content to leave them unassembled. Now the picture was unavoidable. I whispered into the recorder one last time. Tomorrow, she will sit at the table with both mothers. I'll lay it out plainly, piece by piece. No shouting, no accusations without proof, just facts. If she tries to turn it on me, the documents will speak louder. She can't call me crazy if the timestamps agree with me. This is it. And still, when my phone buzzed at 11:02 with her final text before bed, love you, see you tomorrow. My hands trembled so hard I almost dropped it. Proof weighs heavy. But love, even counterfeit love, still knows how to cut deeper. The restaurant was warm, lit with soft amber bulbs that made everything look kinder than it was. I'd chosen a quiet place, not too crowded, not too empty. A place where no one could raise their voice without hearing it echo back. My mother sat to my left, calm but watchful. Irina sat across from me, her face tight, eyes flicking to the door every few seconds. I had the folder in my bag, its weight pressing against my leg like a stone. My heart counted every second. Alina arrived at 7:14, coat draped over her arm, lipstick fresh. She kissed my cheek like nothing had ever been wrong, then greeted the mothers with an exaggerated brightness that made both women stiffen. She looked at me, curious. So, what's this about refinancing? She thought she was in control. I let her settle, order tea, flip her hair behind her shoulder. Then I placed the folder on the table, slow and deliberate. It's not about refinancing, I said. Her smile faltered, eyes darting to the folder. What's this? I opened it, one page at a time, laid out like cards in a game no one wanted to play. The Sparrow rentals charge, the cabin photo with her car tucked among the trees, the mariner's receipt, timestamp aligned with her story about visiting mom, screenshots from Katya, chats, photos, flirtations. Then the selfie she'd sent me with the wrong cabinet and the missing Saint calendar. You told me you were at your mother's, I said softly. But you weren't. I need you to explain. She blinked once, twice, then laughed. You've lost your mind. You've been stalking me, checking receipts. What kind of controlling behavior is this? Her voice rose, not enough to shout, but enough to signal the performance. This is insane, Mark. You're paranoid. I didn't answer her words. I only slid the next page forward, the screenshot with the timestamp, the copy of the HR policy. Irina's voice cut the silence. You called me, Alina. You begged me to lie for you. The color drained from Alina's face. My mother folded her hands, silent but unflinching. Alina's tone sharpened. The next step in her script, attack. So this is a setup? You dragged my mother here? Your mother? To humiliate me? Her hands shook, but her voice carried. You've been snooping, recording, plotting. Do you even hear yourself? You're the liar here, not me. I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone, and played the short clip from the building's intercom. Her voice, hushed but clear. Mom, cover for me. He won't know. The sound was tinny but undeniable. She froze, her mouth opening, closing. No sound. Proof cuts cleaner than anger. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Irina leaned forward, voice low, firm. Enough, Alina. Her own mother, her last refuge, refusing to cover her. Alina shook her head, grabbed her phone like it was a lifeline. She dialed fast, hit speaker. A man's voice crackled through. Dennis, what's wrong? Her words came rushed, panicked. Tell them it's nothing. Tell them it's not serious. My chest turned to ice as his voice filled the table. He hesitated, then said, it's not what it looks like. We're just friends. Katya's message arrived at that exact second. My phone buzzing against the wood. A new screenshot. Dennis's text to her. Don't wait up tonight. Staying with her. The timestamp matched the very moment Alina had sent me her coffee with mom picture. I turned the phone so she could see it. Her hand slipped, and the screen of her own phone went dark. The table was silent except for the hum of the lights overhead. No one yelled. No one needed to. The proof sat between us. Impossible to sweep aside. She looked at me, eyes wide, mouth trembling. For the first time, there was no script left. Just silence. Heavy and final. I closed the folder, slid it back into the bag. This isn't about humiliation, I said quietly. It's about truth, and I'm done being lied to. She tried once more, voice breaking into the victim's plea. Mark, please, I made mistakes, but you've been distant. You don't understand? I was lonely. But her mother's face, pale with disappointment, and my mother's calm, unyielding stare left her nowhere to run. The dinner ended without dessert. She left first, coat clutched in her hands, eyes down. I sat at the table long after, the tea cold, the folder heavy against my leg. The mothers didn't speak much, but they didn't need to. The silence was enough. And in that silence, I felt the first crack of something new. Not relief, not yet, but clarity. The lie was dead on the table. What came next would hurt, but at least it would be real. The days after that dinner passed in a blur of paperwork and hollow hours. There was no dramatic screaming match, no slamming of doors. Instead, it was phone calls with lawyers, quiet trips to the bank, and the slow peeling apart of two lives that had once pretended to be one. Alina stayed away, claiming she needed space, but really she was avoiding the silence she couldn't fill anymore. HR at her company responded formally, almost cold. Relationships between coworkers must be disclosed. Violations can lead to reassignment or termination. I didn't need to push it further. Dennis vanished from the team page 2 weeks later. Katya told me she'd filed for divorce, forwarding me his frantic texts, begging her to reconsider. She didn't answer them. Her strength steadied me more than she knew. Alina tried rewriting history in my inbox. Long, emotional messages about how we'd been distant, how I had shut her out, how mistakes happen when people feel unloved. Each word was crafted to blur the edges, to make me doubt my own memory. But I had the folder. I had the timestamps, the screenshots, the recordings. Proof doesn't bend to emotion. Every time I read her words, I opened the files again. Not to punish myself, but to remind myself I wasn't crazy. The apartment grew emptier day by day. She collected her things in silence. Clothes folded into boxes, makeup jars clinking together, shoes that once cluttered the hallway now gone. I stood back, letting her move like a ghost through our shared space. I didn't argue, didn't ask questions. The truth had already been said. There was nothing left to negotiate. One night, after she left with the last of her boxes, I sat alone at the kitchen table. The faint outline of her mug still marked the wood, a pale ring from too many mornings. I traced it with my finger, then wiped it away. The refrigerator hummed. The apartment was still for the first time in weeks. Still and honest. Irina called me a few days later. Her voice was soft, full of guilt she didn't deserve. I should have stopped her earlier, she whispered. I thought it was just a phase. I didn't want to believe my daughter would lie like that. I told her the truth. She'd done the right thing by calling me, by refusing to cover. If anything, she'd given me the lifeline I needed to see what was real. She cried quietly and I let her, because grief belongs to all of us in different shapes. I walked through the apartment slowly after that. Every object became a relic. The photo of us in a cheap wooden frame, I slid it into a drawer I didn't plan to open again. The cup she always used, I pushed it to the back of the cabinet. Her favorite blanket, still faint with her perfume, I folded it and left it in a bag by the door. The act wasn't anger, it was clearing ground. Katya checked in sometimes. She told me Dennis kept spinning stories, trying to make himself the victim, blaming stress, blaming me, even blaming her. She said she didn't care anymore. He lied so well, but not well enough, she wrote. I told her she was stronger than she knew. In her courage, I found some of my own. In the end, there was no dramatic conclusion, no cinematic goodbye, just paperwork filed, signatures signed, and a silence that slowly became bearable. One evening, I sat by the window, the city lights flickering below, and realized I could finally breathe without waiting for my phone to buzz with another lie. I whispered into the recorder one last time. It's over. The lies are done. I know where she wasn't, and I know where I am now. My own voice sounded different, steady, certain. I closed the app, deleted the files, and sat in the quiet. The apartment was empty, but the silence no longer sounded like loss. It sounded like truth. And truth, heavy as it was finally mine to carry alone.